remember once, a long time ago, on one of the many promenades my dad and I enjoyed at night on board this magnificent vessel, him pointing out what it must have been like for troops throughout the war at night in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And it's haunted me ever since, the whole concept of it. On one hand, there's a lot to be concerned about. There's a lot to worry about, especially in the middle of the night in the Atlantic Ocean that is anything but peaceful. All the lights are out, it's pitch black. On the other hand, you're on board this famous, otherwise safe, magnificently fast, and gloriously built ocean liner. Now, the war aside, on board the Queen Mary at night is such a special experience. You get a feel for the ship in a way you don't get during the daytime. And the obscurity of the city, of the ocean around you, is probably part of that. You can almost envision yourself out at sea, which is something that has been impossible since 1967. Oh, I could just imagine pre-war and post-war as well, all the romantic walks that first-class passengers in particular must have had in this very part of the ship. During the day especially, I can imagine so many passengers just clinging to the side of the handrails here as they exit out of New York, enter into Southampton and vice versa. Oh, the entrance to New York, imagine. And I think the cityscape of Long Beach gives us a good idea of what it must be like. I think they did a good job there. The current real sound of all the vents going off, immersive. The stillness of the night, especially when no one's around. Don't be misled. The Queen Mary at night is anything but creepy, anything but scary. I mean, the massive amounts of wake. How did Joan Crawford put it?
Parting the seas in sunder in a surge, shredding a trackway like a mile of snow.
Yeah, it's just like that. Having been on a cruise where I got to experience a whole lot of wake, I could just imagine how beautiful it must have been, how therapeutic it must have been. When the ship wasn't rocking and rolling too hard in rough Atlantic weather, that is. Here is the vinyl album cover sold on board Cunard ships, I imagine, of a romantic depiction on board the second Mauretania. Now, I do believe the Queen Mary's sister ship, Queen Elizabeth, and Mauretania too, had more to offer when it came to nightlife on board, referring, of course, to the upper decks. I feel like the Queen Mary was an early bird, while these two ships in particular were night owls. Looking at their decks, it just cries nightlife to me, more so. So many, too many stories to tell.
The Veranda Grill. The exclusively private space reserved at an upcharge for first-class passengers. At night, no doubt, the curtains were closed, enhancing the fantasy atmosphere that made this space so special and so unique. No doubt from the outer decks, however, the music must have been an enchanting echo. There must have been many wonderful sounds from the different lounges spaced throughout the ship and heard from various vantage points.
She's got a soul. She's definitely got a soul. Where other ships haven't got a soul, but this ship has. There's something you can't really put your fingers on. I think it's people. The people that belong to this ship. There's something very, very deep.
With the occasional impressively dressed passengers outside for some air and perhaps, too, some romance. Observing the moon dancing upon the quickly moving water at 33 knots, if I'm not mistaken. The bridge. How sleepy and drowsy, and yet how much more watchful and perhaps, consequently, awake it must have been for the officers at night. Even their sleeping quarters were in close proximity to their work, though certainly by today's standards, some of the best and most coveted staterooms and locations aboard the ship. Many of them a sweeping view of the bow as it charges through the cold, dark North Atlantic Ocean, at 33 knots no doubt. Who would dare venture to such a vantage point at such a late hour?
And that's saying nothing about her interiors at night.
The very nature of her being, le raison d'être of the Queen Mary as a ship, already creates a natural mystère and romanticism. What visions of fog and a wide open ocean? What perspectives of long winding decks and seemingly never-ending corridors that give a liminal and almost foreboding presence? Echoes in the ship's chambers. The now extinct sheer that covers the ship's length only adding to this cachotterie.
The life of a liner is relentless. Her work is never entirely done. Late at night, the atmosphere can be eerie. It sometimes seems that the few people who can be found are mere servants of a greater will, that the ship has somehow taken control of her own destiny. Almost 1,000 men and women, representing dozens of different occupations, run the ship. Many have little contact with passengers and live in small, unsuspected enclaves within the labyrinth below decks. Once thousands worked the transatlantic superliners.
How you doing?
Very well.
What are you going to do when this thing packs up?
Well, I don't know, Bob. I suppose try and get another one.
Well, you will, unless you want to take the rivets out.
Well, we'll get a job doing that.
The beautiful, though, in my opinion, rather limited preserved spaces and features richly remain in some ways, yet consequently remain void in mere echoes of their former grandeur in other ways. And I'd argue that if she were properly decked out, as many of us believe she should be, I believe it would only add to the haunting window that is this ship's elite past. Within remains the unavoidable effects of space and time gone by. The past is a different place. They do things differently there. And no better I feel this liminal reality than in the dead, or perhaps wonder, depending on your viewpoint, of night. There, hopefully, will be much more done to highlight this ship's former grandeur. In the meantime, during the evening hours, her charming and animated characteristics ignite in me a joyful calm, a sense of rustic sophistication. Yes, that's how we'll classify it. And no more enchantingly is it characterized than in the delights of the evening light.